So, Sheikh Kamal, with regards to this notion of people being even if it's one verse, narrate to me from even one verse, how does that look like in the real world? A lot of times people, even that one verse that they try to communicate, they confuse or they mess up or...
Yeah. So, I don't know what this verse they're messing up. So basically, look, I always tell people this way.
I give you an example. Two guys came to the masjid one time. Intense debate. One of them was non-Muslim, the other guy was Muslim. But the Muslim guy, it seemed like he had never set foot in a masjid ever. And they came because they needed a sheikh to resolve their dispute. Their dispute was whether Rasulullah ﷺ was black. The Muslim guy is telling him the Prophet was black. The non-Muslim guy's like, no, he's not black. So they both came to the masjid to resolve this conflict. And so when they came to me, I was like, he's not black at all. And the non-Muslim was like, I told you. And the guy's like, well, I had read this hadith or something like that. So sometimes people have this hesitancy just because maybe not necessarily a verse, but their interpretation of a verse, they're not sure if it's correct. The hadith that 3 or 4 or 10 that they know, it might not necessarily seem authentic or they're not sure if it's authentic.
Yeah, so the mistake there was just going there in the first place. Yeah, because you talk about the basics. You don't need, this is not an important issue, whether the Prophet ﷺ was black or white. You're talking to a non-Muslim. Your first talking point is Tawheed, and you stay on that topic. They try to move you on to other things, and there's a rule. Sometimes you do move on to other things when it's really important to the person in front of you. And he doesn't want to hear about Tawheed until he is sure that Islam does not oppress women. So now I have to pause, discuss that issue, come back to my main topic. You're always on that main topic. Don't go anywhere else. And I always tell people in the da'wah class, that who knows more about Islam or knew more about Islam? Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, the first day he became Muslim, or any of the young kids in the masjid today? Let's keep it real. Who has more knowledge about Islam? Those young kids over here? Or Abu Bakr the first day he became Muslim? Yeah, I don't think anyone has any doubt. Okay, in case you have doubt, what did Abu Bakr know about Islam on the first day? 2 things. What? There's only one God that should be worshipped, and that man, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is his prophet. Until this, there was nothing else. No salah, nothing. And guess what he did with that knowledge? He brought 5 out of the 10 given glad tidings of paradise to Islam with that knowledge. And it's always the basic knowledge that gets people, the basic information that gets people. The 5 pillars and Tawheed, that's it. People start going into, there's lots of scientific miracles in the Quran. And this lady one time, she's a lawyer. She came straight from work to the Imam's office. Not here, this is in Virginia. And she sat down, she said, why should I become Muslim? He immediately starts with the science in the Quran. Well, you know, there are a lot of scientific miracles in the Quran. She just cut him off. She said, listen, I'm not going to become Muslim because there's some science in the Quran. What will Islam do for me? And then he realized, who cares about the science in the Quran thing? A lot of times in the old days, we'd present the Quran like it's a science book. And people try to get, fancy with it. Just keep it basic. The basic stuff that you know that qualifies you to be Muslim, that's what you talk about.
You just reminded me, even in these types of discussions, you have to keep your argument very, very tight. Because if you throw all of these loose ends, and a lot of times that's what we do, because we're trying to, we just want to talk a lot. And so you mentioned like 3 really strong points, and this happens in debate also. And then you have like 2 really weaker points. And then you throw out the 2 weaker points too, because now you've got 5 points. And so what that person will do is they'll then attack your 2 really weak points, and now you got to spend the next like 4 hours debating these 2 weak points that weren't even real points for you. One brother, he called me up and he said, is the hellfire one level or are there multiple levels? And I said, what I know is that there are multiple levels, not this notion of one level. He's like, you sure? We were in a class with so-and-so. Don't you remember him mentioning one level? I was like, no, to be honest, I know that the hypocrites are in the lowest level of the fire. There are levels to the hellfire. And he was like, I was having a discussion with some brothers about weed. And I was talking to them about weed being haram, and it was very clear and all of this type of stuff. And then I just kind of threw out there something that I wasn't sure of, which is the hellfire. And I said that it's one level. And the brother said, what do you mean? How dare you say that it's one level?
Sidetracked the whole conversation.
Sidetracked the whole. He said, I spent the entire night talking to this guy about whether the hellfire was one level or like multiple levels. And he was like, we cannot move on from this until we decide, because if you don't have this, I can't trust you on everything else. He was like, I wish I didn't mention that. So you just got to keep your argument very, very tight. Focus on the basics. That way you avoid slip-ups. And Allah knows.